Welcome to Unit 7. This is the Byzantine Empire, formerly known previously as the Eastern Roman Empire. So this is a perfect transition for us as we leave the study of the Roman Empire and go towards the Byzantine Empire. We're going to, over the course of this unit, talk about the Byzantine Empire. We will talk a bit about Justinian, who was the most famous and influential leader, the most famous emperor of the Byzantine Empire. And we will also talk about the influence of religion in this empire. Christianity has a big impact, and the rise of Islam, which was born during the time of the Byzantine Empire and had a major impact on how that region of the world developed. Now, as you will recall from our study of Rome, later in the history of the Roman Empire, it was split east and west. You had a Western Roman Empire that was headquartered in Rome, and you had an Eastern Roman Empire that was headquartered in Constantinople. That was done because of all of the Germanic tribes like the Visigoths that kept invading what was at that point the Western Roman Empire, the Italian peninsula. So during the last years of the Western Roman Empire, a lot of their power and their government actually moved from Rome to Constantinople, and Constantinople became the most important city in the Roman Empire. Now, after the Western Roman Empire fell in 476, you'll recall the Eastern Roman Empire actually endures, and it eventually will become known as the Byzantine Empire, and it will have its capital at Constantinople, named after the Emperor Constantine that had originally moved most of the government functions there. The Byzantine Empire ended in the year 1453, but during the 500s and 600s, it was very, very, very big, and you can see on this map here about how big it was in the year 550. Now, by 1453, it had pretty much shrunk to a pretty small area around Constantinople, and those other areas like Italy and Egypt and the Middle East, there where Jerusalem is, were controlled by other people. But it continued to be a very wealthy, very influential empire up until the very end when Constantinople fell to the Ottomans in 1453. The Byzantine Empire's most powerful and well-known and influential emperor was Justinian. Justinian was the Byzantine emperor for 38 years, from 527 to 565, so he was the emperor during the peak of its size and power and influence, which you saw in the map on the previous slide. Justinian's primary goal was to restore the glory that was Rome. He was a big fan of what the Roman Empire had been able to accomplish during its heyday in the Pax Romana in about the years 100 to 200, and he wanted to bring that back. So to that end, he creates some very magnificent buildings and uses those buildings to try to remind everyone of what these magnificent Roman buildings had looked like hundreds of years before. The most famous example is the Hagia Sophia, which means holy wisdom. It was this giant temple in Constantinople, and it's the building depicted on the very first slide of this video. So if you need to go back and look at that, go ahead. But it is indicative of the way a lot of Byzantine buildings tried to echo Roman style and Roman architecture. He also tried to restore Roman law, which he thought was a triumph of Roman thought and Roman achievement. He created a body of civil law, which later became known as Justinian's Code. And Justinian's Code remains the basis of all civil law in many parts of the world. And it's very, very influential. And as this unit goes on, we will actually do a little bit more with Justinian's Code and talk more about specifically what it said. But you should know that Justinian's Code is a very, very important accomplishment that he's able to put into place. Besides compiling all of the Roman law into one body of law and building a really awesome temple, there are a lot of other cultural achievements that the Byzantines under Justinian are able to put forth and accomplish. They, in their culture, have a hodgepodge of several different influences. Obviously, you've got the Roman influence because they're trying to emulate Rome, but you also see some other cultures influence what they create. Greek columns and Greek-inspired architecture are very, very common. And you also see some indications that they borrowed from Middle Eastern culture. If you look back again at the first slide at the building, a picture of the Hagia Sophia, you can see on the outside the big dome that is very common in Roman architecture in buildings like the Pantheon, but you also see those sort of spires or tower-looking things off to the side. Those are known as minarets, and those are very, very big in Arab and Islamic architecture. So each individual building even may have different influences to them. Now, the picture on top here on this slide is of the inside of the Hagia Sophia, and you see the arches, which of course are inspired by Roman architecture. You see arches all throughout ancient Rome. There's also a lot of historians in the Byzantine period, and like the Greek historians like Herodotus and Thucydides that we talked about back during Greece, they wrote primarily about their own times. Most notably Procopius, who wrote a volume called The Secret History, where he criticized Justinian and his wife, whose name was Theodora, and that's her picture there. He criticized them for being manipulative and refers to them as being evil, lying and cheating and stealing their way into power and into conquering a lot of different areas. So not a very positive view of them. Probably why it's called The Secret History. Probably didn't want people to know who said it. This is not going to be a very long unit. We're only going to spend about a week on the Byzantine Empire. But what we're going to cover over the course of the rest of the unit is the fall of the Byzantine Empire, why it weakened, and why it fell apart in 1453. There are two religions that influenced this region specifically, and I told you about that at the beginning of this video. Christianity has a major influence in the Byzantine Empire, especially early on. It's also influenced by the rise of Islam. Islam is founded in the 600s and very quickly spreads throughout the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Africa. And that's going to have ramifications for how the Byzantine Empire is affected. So take notes, be prepared for a quiz, watch the video again if you need to, and as always, ask me or Ms. Hall if you have any questions. Cheers.